What happens when the man who held your world together drops dead in a school hallway and your own mother tells you to call back tomorrow? What do you do when grief hits, but your family shows up not with comfort but with questions about life insurance? This isn't just a story about loss. It's about a woman who stood up not just for herself but for her daughter, and for a kind of love that doesn't have a price tag. This is the invoice, and you won't forget it. IT happened on a Thursday morning that began like any other. Daniel made blueberry waffles, humming softly in his off-key voice, while Maddie danced around the kitchen in her mismatched socks. I had a Zoom meeting scheduled in 30 minutes, so I kissed them both quickly, grabbed my coffee, and shut myself in the home office. The call came at 10:18 a.m. I saw the name Franklin County Middle School and my heart immediately sank. Daniel was a 7th grade history teacher and the school's basketball coach. They wouldn't call unless something was wrong. "Hannah Blake?" a shaky voice asked. "Yes?" My stomach tightened. "This is Principal Carson. I'm so sorry, but your husband collapsed during morning prep. Paramedics are with him now. He's unresponsive." I dropped the mug in my hand. It shattered on the hardwood, shards spreading like the moment itself, sharp and irreversible. The next 30 minutes blurred. I don't remember grabbing my keys or throwing on a hoodie. I barely remember calling our neighbor Lorraine and asking her to pick up Maddie from school. All I know is I drove like a madwoman toward the hospital, whispering prayers through tears that stung too hard to wipe away. But when I reached St. Thomas Medical Center, it was already too late. Daniel Blake, me husband, my partner and everything. The man who couldn't dance but always tried was gone. Massive stroke. Quick. No warning. No time. I sat in a beige hospital hallway while a nurse with kind eyes explained what had happened. Her voice soft and clinical, like grief should come with footnotes. They let me see him. His face looked peaceful, as if he were just taking a nap before basketball practice. But he was cold. The warmth had left with him, leaving a shell that felt insultingly still. I stayed there too long, holding his hand that wouldn't hold back. Eventually, someone handed me paperwork. I nodded at words like authorization and next of kin, though none of it made sense. It felt like I'd slipped into someone else's nightmare, one I hadn't agreed to enter. When I walked back into the parking lot, the silence hit me harder than the news. No one knew yet. Not Maddie. Not my parents. Not even his brother Aaron, who was still out in Seattle. I sat in the car for nearly 10 minutes before reaching for my phone. I called my mom first. I needed her. She picked up on the third ring, and I could hear music and clinking glasses in the background. "Hannah? Can I call you back? We're in the middle of Jenna's birthday lunch at the bistro, remember?" Her voice was chipper, like nothing had changed. "Mama." I tried to speak, but my throat locked. "Hannah? Sweetie? What's going on?" "It's Daniel," I choked out. "Heh, collapsed at school. He died. This morning." The background noise faded as she covered the phone, muttering something. When she came back, her tone was flatter, more serious but still distracted. "Oh, that's... wow. I mean, are you sure? It wasn't a stroke or something minor?" I didn't even answer that. "I need you," I whispered. "Please come." There was a pause. "Honey, I know this is awful, truly, but we've got all of Jenna's friends here. The restaurant's reserved. Can we talk tomorrow? We'll come by then. Tomorrow." I stared at the phone as if it had betrayed me, as if I'd misheard. But I hadn't. I didn't call anyone else from my side of the family. I couldn't. Instead, I went home and collapsed on the hallway floor, clutching Daniel's hoodie to my face. It still smelled like his cologne and the faint scent of coffee. The scent of normal. Maddie got home around 3:30. Lorraine walked her to the door, gently squeezing my shoulder without saying a word. Maddie skipped in like always, but stopped short when she saw me. "Where's Daddy?" she asked, eyes wide. I opened my mouth, but no words came. I reached for her hand. That night, I held her while she sobbed and screamed for her dad. The sound of her pain broke something inside me I don't think will ever fully heal. We slept in my bed, clinging to each other under the same blanket Daniel had tucked around us just the night before. The silence in the house was deafening, and through the phone calls I didn't return, the casseroles that didn't come, the condolences that never arrived, there was one glaring truth. We were alone. The people I thought would catch us when we fell were nowhere to be found. And something inside me whispered this was just the beginning. I met Daniel Blake in the most unremarkable way imaginable during a campus mixer at the University of Georgia. I was 19, halfway through a psychology degree I wasn't sure I even wanted, and he was the junior assistant assigned to help run orientation for incoming students. I remember him spilling his sweet tea all over his khakis during a welcome speech, then laughing so hard at himself that half the room joined in. I was hooked from that laugh. Daniel wasn't flashy. He didn't try to be the center of attention. But when he looked at you, it felt like he saw all the way in, like you didn't have to pretend. With Daniel, I didn't feel like I had to be the strong one, or the smart one, or the one who had it all figured out. I could just be. We started dating in our junior year, spending long evenings walking the trails behind the dorms, talking about everything and nothing. He loved old maps and classic rock. I loved puzzles and novels where everyone kept secrets. He thought cilantro tasted like soap. I teased him about it constantly. By the time we graduated, I didn't just love him. I needed him in a way that scared me. He proposed the day after we both walked across the stage, slipping a ring inside a used copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. "Because you see the world like Scout does," he said. "You try to understand people, even when they don't deserve it." We married that fall, barefoot, in my grandmother's backyard in Savannah. I wore a $200 dress, and he wore a crooked tie he borrowed from his best friend. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Daniel became a middle school history teacher right after his teaching certification came through. He loved it more than I ever expected. "Middle schoolers are weird," he said once, "but they're honest. They'll roast your shoes and your haircut in the same breath they ask if slavery is still legal. Keeps you humble." I took a job in HR at a regional bank. It paid the bills, and I was good at it, but it wasn't where my heart lived. My heart lived in the little apartment we shared in East Nashville, where we burned lasagna trying to cook like adults, and slow danced to Van Morrison in the kitchen. We spent 5 years just being us, traveling when we could, saving up, painting the second bedroom a soft yellow just in case. But just in case didn't come easy. The first miscarriage happened after our first anniversary. The second happened a year later. We stopped telling people we were trying. It hurt too much to answer the well-meaning questions. After the third round of tests and too many early morning drives to the fertility clinic, I suggested we stop. Not forever, just for our sanity. Daniel agreed, but I could see how much it cost him. He wanted to be a dad more than anything. "I just want someone to teach how to tie their shoes and explain why we don't eat cereal for dinner every night," he'd say, half joking, half hoping. Then, one October morning, after I'd resigned myself to the idea of a future with just the two of us and a dog we hadn't adopted yet, I saw 2 pink lines on a test. I stared at it so long my eyes blurred. Daniel cried when I told him. Not just tears, full-body sobs. The kind that shake your shoulders and make your words come out in gasps. He kissed my stomach and whispered, "Please, stay." That pregnancy was hard. I was sick for the first trimester, on bed rest for the third. My blood pressure spiked. There were scary moments, too many hospital visits. But Daniel was steady, always steady. He worked from home when he could, read baby books out loud at night like bedtime stories. He massaged my feet, made me smoothies, and held my hair when I couldn't keep them down. When I apologized for how difficult it all was, he said, "If this is the hardest thing we ever do together, we're lucky." Maddie arrived on a rainy March afternoon, 6 pounds even, with Daniel's eyes and my stubborn chin. He held her before I did. His hands shook, but he didn't let go. He stared at her like she was the last piece of the puzzle he'd been building his whole life. For the next 9 years, he made fatherhood look like art. He became the assistant basketball coach at Franklin County Middle so he could be home by 4. He signed up to chaperone every school field trip. He color-coded Maddie's activities on a shared calendar. Pink was dance class. Green was dentist. Red was, don't you dare miss this. He built her a treehouse even though he was terrified of ladders. He spent 2 weeks learning how to braid hair just because Maddie asked him to. He taught her how to ride a bike, change a tire, say I'm sorry when she hurt someone's feelings. He had rules. No phones at the dinner table. Always say please to your lunch lady. If you say you're going to do something, do it. He wasn't perfect. He snored. He left socks everywhere. He used way too much paprika on everything. But he showed up, day after day, in small ways that mattered more than grand gestures. People always say you never know what you have until it's gone. I think that's only half true. I did know. Every single day, I knew I had something rare, something strong, something worth everything. That's what makes the silence now feel so cruel. Every corner of the house still holds his echo. The basketball signed by his students in the hallway. The mug that says best coach ever, still in the dish rack. His flannel hanging behind the door because I can't bring myself to wash it. Maddie doesn't say much about him yet. She just clings a little harder when I tuck her in. She asks to wear his t-shirts to bed. She started sleeping with his old hoodie, the sleeves hanging past her fingers. The night after the funeral, I found her in the closet, curled up inside his laundry basket, whispering to his shoes. He was my best friend, Mama. I wrapped her in my arms and said the only thing that felt true. Mine, too. The day after Daniel's funeral, the house felt like a museum. Quiet, frozen, every surface holding some memory that hurt to touch. I spent most of the morning curled on the couch with Maddie, watching cartoons she didn't laugh at, holding a mug of tea I never drank. The front door stayed closed. I hadn't heard a single word from my parents since the night Daniel died. Not a knock, not a meal dropped off, not even a text asking how Maddie was coping. But at noon that Sunday, my phone finally buzzed. It was my mother, Tracy Blake. We'll stop by around 2. Want to check in. Jenna's coming too. I stared at the message like it belonged to someone else's life. I hadn't asked them to come. I hadn't wanted them to come. But something inside me thought maybe they were finally ready to be family. To show up. I cleaned up the kitchen, wiped the counters twice. Maddie went to her room and shut the door without a word. She hadn't asked about her grandparents once. At 2:18, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother in a powder blue blazer, the one she wore to brunches and garden parties, and my father in a pressed golf shirt. Jenna trailed behind them, scrolling on her phone. "Hey, sweetheart," my mom said, air kissing my cheek. "We've been meaning to come by sooner, but things have been hectic. I nodded and stepped aside. They walked in like they owned the place. We sat in the living room on the couch, them across in the chairs. The air felt stiff, like waiting for a verdict. "I know this is a hard time," my father began, placing his elbows on his knees in his business deal posture. "But we wanted to talk through some of the practical stuff." "Practical?" I echoed. My mother reached into her purse and pulled out a notepad. "We were talking," she said carefully, "and given how well Daniel provided for you and Maddie, we thought it might be a good idea to discuss how that can benefit the family, as a whole." My mouth dried. "You mean his life insurance?" I asked. They exchanged glances. My father cleared his throat. "Yes, look, we know Daniel was smart with money. I'm sure he made provisions for you and Maddie. But your mother and I, well, we're not getting any younger. Our retirement took a hit, and with Jenna still working off her student loans," Jenna finally looked up from her phone. "I'm 28, still living in a studio apartment with mold on the ceiling. You guys have this house, a car, security. I just think it's fair to spread things a little. Something inside me twisted. You think Daniel died and now it's time to spread things? I asked slowly. My father raised a hand. That's not what we meant, but you have to admire the left you comfortable. That kind of money can do a lot of good for the people who helped raise you. Helped raise me? I whispered. I called you crying the day he died, and you told me you were at a birthday party. Hannah, my mother said sharply. That was Jenna's 30th. We had guests flying in. We couldn't just walk out. Why not? I snapped. Why couldn't you? Because life doesn't stop for tragedy, Jenna said suddenly. You act like no one else has problems. There it was. The mask slipped, and all the suppressed grief, the nights I cried in the dark while holding Maddie's shaking shoulders, the mornings I still reached for Daniel's side of the bed, the silence from my own parents, when I needed them most it, all boiled up into something hot and sharp in my throat. You're right, I said quietly. Life doesn't stop, but family is supposed to show up anyway. My mother's lips tightened. We're trying now. No, I said. You're asking now, for a cut. My father's voice cooled. Don't make this emotional. We're talking logistics. We helped with your college tuition, the down payment on your first condo. That was family investment. I stared at him. Did you just call being my parents an investment? My mother stood up. We're not villains, Hannah. We're asking for a conversation. And you came to have it before Daniel's body is even cold. The room pulsed with silence. Then Jenna said, Look, maybe it's time someone else benefits for once. I'm sorry your husband died, but it's not like he didn't have health issues. You knew the risks. I was on my feet before I even realized. Get out. Hannah, out. All of you. We just want what's fair, my father insisted, standing. We're family. You're strangers, I said, and you were never talking to my daughter about this. Jenna scoffed. Maybe Maddie deserves to know what kind of martyr complex you're developing. That did it. I moved toward the door and yanked it open. Leave now. They filed out, grumbling, murmuring that I was being dramatic, emotional, unfair, but I couldn't hear them over the roar in my head. The door slammed shut. My hands were trembling. I turned to find Maddie in the hallway, hugging Daniel's hoodie to her chest. Were Grandma and Grandpa mad at you? She asked. I knelt beside her, heart splitting all over again. No, baby, I whispered. They were just confused. She looked at me for a long time. They asked for money, didn't they? I blinked. What makes you think that? I heard Grandpa talking to Aunt Jenna at the funeral. He said, It's enough for everyone if she's reasonable. I didn't know what that meant, but now I do. I pulled her into my arms. No one's touching what Daddy left us, I said fiercely. That's your future. She didn't answer, just hugged me tighter. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after Maddie had gone to bed, staring at Daniel's unopened legal folders. I hadn't wanted to think about money, about papers, about documents and clauses. But now, I needed to know, because the people who should have been protecting us weren't. And it was clear now, if I didn't protect Maddie's future, no one else would. For days after that awful meeting, I moved through my house like a ghost in my own skin. The walls felt closer, the light felt colder. I'd walk into rooms and forget why I came in. I'd boil water for tea and leave the kettle whistling until Maddie came running down the hall asking if something was burning. She had started watching me carefully, too carefully for a 9-year-old. I caught her checking the locks at night, picking up dishes I hadn't realized I'd left in the sink. One morning, I found her folding my laundry. When I asked her why, she just said, Daddy always did this when you were sad. That broke me a little more. Nights were the hardest. Maddie had nightmares almost every other night, and when she didn't cry out for Daniel, she talked to him in her sleep. I would lay next to her, one arm around her small frame, wondering how I'd explain to her one day that her grandparents, my parents, had tried to take advantage of the worst moment of our lives. One Thursday morning, I finally opened the big plastic bin Daniel had labeled Emergencies and Docs. Inside were our wills, insurance paperwork, mortgage documents, things he had filed meticulously while I was still too overwhelmed by grief to function. I sat at the table, reading every page, highlighting details I barely understood. It wasn't just that Daniel had planned everything. It was that he had protected me even from the people he probably knew might turn on us. I found a sticky note with his handwriting. "If you're reading this, you're doing great. Keep breathing." I cried so hard my hands shook. Later that evening, after Maddie had gone to bed, I tried calling my mom. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe. Some desperate part of me still wanted a mother. Someone who would hold me, brush my hair, make me soup, and say, "You don't have to figure this out alone." She didn't answer. I didn't leave a voicemail. That night, I dreamed I was back in high school, sitting in the bleachers while my younger sister Jenna won another award. My parents were in the front row, clapping, standing even. In the dream, I was invisible. I stood up, waved, screamed, even, but no one saw me. I woke up breathless, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. It wasn't just a dream, it was a memory. The truth is, this betrayal didn't start with Daniel's death. It started years ago, quietly, like a crack under paint. A pattern I had chosen not to see. The Christmas I turned 13, Jenna got the bike I'd saved months for. I got socks and a book on etiquette. When I cried, my mother told me, "You're older. You have to learn to give." When I got into the honors program in high school, my father said, "Well, of course, you're the responsible one." When Jenna got a C+ in algebra, they threw her a pizza party for trying hard. When I left home for college, my mom hugged me tight and whispered, "Don't forget, your sister needs you too." Never once did they say they needed me or missed me. Back then, I convinced myself they just didn't know how to show love, that maybe loving quietly was still love. But now, I knew better. Now I saw the difference between being needed and being used. Maddie did too. She didn't say much after that meeting with my parents, but one afternoon, as we sat on the back porch watching the light fade over the lawn, she spoke softly. "Why doesn't Grandma like me?" I looked over, startled. "What makes you say that? She never talks to me at parties. She didn't even sit with me at Daddy's funeral." My chest tightened. "She likes Aunt Jenna more," Maddie said. "She smiles more with her, even when Aunt Jenna's mean." I reached over and took her hand. "It's not your fault," I whispered. "None of this is your fault." She nodded, quiet again. Then she asked something I hadn't expected. "Are we still going to see them?" I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to teach my daughter to cut people off too easily. But I also didn't want her to believe she owed love to people who only showed up when they wanted something. "I don't know," I said honestly. "What do you think?" She shrugged. "I think maybe we need new grandparents." That made me laugh through my tears. Not because it was funny, but because it was brave. And it was true. That night, I emailed Aaron Daniel's brother. He had texted me every few days since the funeral, checking in from Seattle, always ending with, "Say the word and I'll be there." I finally said the word. I told him everything about the visit, the request, the way my parents had treated Maddie. I told him I was scared. Scared that they'd come back. Scared that maybe, somehow, they'd win. He responded the next morning with one line. "I'm on the next flight out." Aaron arrived on a Tuesday morning. When I opened the door, he was standing there with 2 suitcases and a face that looked more like Daniel's than I'd remembered. Same eyes, same half smile. I didn't realize I was crying until he dropped his bags and wrapped his arms around me. "I've got you," he whispered. "We're going to get through this." He stayed in the guest room Daniel had helped paint a muted green just a few months before. Peaceful, Daniel had called it. Good for thinking. I hadn't gone in since the funeral. Aaron didn't say anything, just unpacked quietly and set his alarm to get Maddie ready for school the next day. In the first few days, Aaron fixed the leaky faucet, mowed the lawn, and rebuilt the broken railing on the porch that had been on Daniel's to-do list for months. But what mattered more was the way he looked at Maddie like she was someone worth listening to, worth showing up for. They bonded almost immediately. Aaron had brought her a travel chess set, said it was from her dad. "He always wanted to teach you," Aaron said. "He made me promise I would if he ever couldn't." They started every evening with a match at the kitchen table. Maddie wasn't very good yet, but she was determined, and Aaron never let her win easy. On Thursday, while cleaning out Daniel's filing cabinet, I found a small white envelope with my name in his handwriting. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't dramatic. Just placed gently inside the manila folder labeled, "If something happens." I hesitated before opening it. My hands trembled as I slid the letter out. "My Hannah, if you're reading this, it means something happened. I'm sorry. I didn't want to scare you, so I didn't share everything after my last doctor visit. But I had some concerns about my heart that didn't sit right. I didn't want to waste our time together worrying. I wanted to live. I've updated everything, the will, the insurance, the accounts. You and Maddie are secure. That matters most. There's a trust set up for Maddie that no one can touch until she's 25, except for education and essentials. Protect that. Protect her. I know how your father thinks. He's already tried to get money from Weiss. Told me it was family investing. I said no. Politely. He won't be polite with you. Please don't let him manipulate you. Don't let your mother guilt you. You owe them nothing. You are enough. Maddie is everything good we ever did. I love you. Thank you for being my home." Daniel, I reread that letter until the ink blurred. He knew. He'd seen it coming, and still, he tried to shield me from the weight of it. Later that evening, I sat Aaron down and read it aloud. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he simply nodded and said, "He planned for everything except staying." It was the most painful compliment I'd ever heard. I spent the next day gathering documents, copies of the trust, Daniel's will, insurance policies. I emailed them to Lauren, a lawyer friend of Daniel's who had helped set up the paperwork. She called me within the hour. "Everything's airtight," she said. "Your parents have no legal claim, and if they try anything, we'll be ready." That gave me peace. But Maddie? She gave me something else entirely. One afternoon, I found her at the kitchen table with colored pencils, a ruler, and a sheet of printer paper. She looked focused and peeking out the corner of her mouth the way Daniel's did when he concentrated. "What are you working on?" I asked. She covered the page with her arm like she was hiding a secret birthday card. "It's a surprise. For Grandpa and Grandma." I froze. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because they came to see you about Daddy's money, right?" I heard. I was in the hallway. I knelt beside her, gently taking her hands. "Maddie, that's not something you need to worry about. That's grown-up stuff, okay?" She looked at me with Daniel's exact eyes. Steady, quiet, stronger than I was at her Agor, maybe even now. "I'm not doing it because I'm mad," she said softly. "I just want them to see." I didn't push. I didn't ask what she meant. She went back to her work, carefully lettering each line like it mattered. That night, she showed Aaron what she'd made. He called me in from the hallway, eyes misty. "You need to see this." It was a hand-drawn invoice. At the top, in her careful block letters, "Bill for love and support, for Grandma and Grandpa." Itemized lines beneath. "Came to hug Mommy when Daddy died. $0. Not provided. Saturday next to me at the funeral. $0. Not provided. Called to ask if I was okay. $0. Not provided. Brought us dinner. $0. Not provided. Being real family. Priceless, but not earned. Total. $0. Below that. Thank you for nothing. Love, Maddie. I couldn't speak. I just knelt down and hugged her so tight she squeaked. Did I do something bad? She whispered. No, baby, I said through tears. You did something brave. We didn't talk about what to do with the invoice until a few days later, when my father called again. This time, he didn't leave a message, just rang twice and hung up. It wasn't over. I could feel it. They're going to try again, Aaron warned. This time they'll bring back up guilt, maybe even legal threats. I nodded. Then we'll be ready. Maddie placed the envelope on the kitchen counter, sealed and addressed. For Grandma and Grandpa. Please read carefully. She handed it to me and said, let's go give it to them when they ask again. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. The invitation came 2 weeks later. An email from my father. Short, formal, subject, family meeting. This Sunday, 2 p.m. Message. We believe this situation has escalated unnecessarily. Your mother and I would like to resolve this as a family. Please bring Maddie. I read it 3 times. The phrase bring Maddie made my stomach twist. When I showed the message to Aaron, he just raised an eyebrow. They want an audience, he said. Then they're going to get one, I replied. Sunday arrived with an eerie stillness. I dressed simply black blouse, jeans, boots. Maddie wore a navy blue dress and carried her manila envelope under one arm like it held state secrets. Aaron offered to come, but I told him to wait at the house. If this goes sideways, I said, you'll be the first call. We pulled into my parents' driveway at 1:58 p.m. sharp. I hadn't been there in over a year. The house looked the same, a tidy porch, azalea bushes trimmed to military precision. But it felt like enemy territory now. My mother opened the door before we knocked. Hannah, she said with practiced warmth. Maddie, come in. We stepped inside and immediately saw the setup. My father sitting in his armchair like a judge. Jenna on the love seat beside him, and 3 other relatives, Aunt Maureen, Uncle Dennis, and Cousin Eric, spaced strategically around the room. A staged intervention. I felt Maddie press closer to me. I squeezed her hand once, then guided her to the empty couch. We appreciate you coming, my father began, steepling his fingers. This isn't an attack, it's a discussion about fairness. I didn't respond. My mother continued. We understand you're grieving and emotions are high, but there are broader concerns now. Family-wide concerns. Concerns like money, I said flatly. My Uncle Dennis cleared his throat. It's not just about the money, Hannah. It's about legacy. Daniel left a significant amount behind, and you all think you deserve a slice, I finished. Jenna rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Hannah. You've always played the martyr. The perfect daughter, the good one, but life gave you a windfall, and maybe it's time you shared it. My voice stayed even. My husband died. That wasn't a windfall. That was a tragedy. He knew he had health issues, my father said calmly. It's not like it was completely unpredictable. And now that he's gone, the responsible thing is to ensure the family's long-term stability. He reached behind him and pulled out a folder. We've put together a proposal. 50% of the insurance payout would go to your mother and me. An additional 15% to Jenna to help with her loans and housing situation. And what's left, Jenna added, is still plenty for you and Maddie. I stared at them, all of them, even the relatives who had said nothing but showed up to this performance with eyes full of expectation. They had done the math, counted the death of someone I loved as leverage. I stood up slowly. Before I respond, I said, Maddie has something she wants to share. My mother blinked. This really isn't a conversation, I said sharply. You wanted her here. She's here. She speaks. Maddie stood. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled the envelope from under her arm and opened it. She looked at the room with more courage than most adults I know. This is for you, she said, handing the page to my grandfather. He unfolded it. I watched his face shift, eyes narrowing, then flicking down the page. He passed it to my mother, whose mouth fell open slightly. then to Jenna, who snorted out a bitter laugh. "What is this? Some guilt trip?" she said. Maddie lifted her chin. "It's an invoice. For everything real family is supposed to do. But you didn't." She read it aloud, clear and strong. "Hugged Mom when Daddy died. $0. Not provided. Saturday with me at the funeral. $0. Not provided. Asked if I was okay. $0. Not provided. Helped with dinner. $0. Not provided. Loved me like a granddaughter. Priceless. Not delivered. Total. 0, she finished. That's what you earned." The room was silent. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Jenna looked away. My father's jaw tightened. "That's cruel, Hannah. Teaching her to shame people." "I didn't teach her," I said, stepping beside Maddie. She watched. She noticed. And she responded with more dignity than any of you showed us. Uncle Dennis muttered. "Maybe this wasn't the best way to handle no," I cut in. "The best way would have been to show up when I called you sobbing. To sit with me in the dark. To hold Maddie's hand when she asked for her dad. I turned to my parents. But you didn't. You had a birthday party. You had wine and shrimp cocktail while I held Daniel's cold hand in a hospital. And then you came back weeks later not to mourn but to negotiate." My father stood now, face flushed. "We raised you. We paid your tuition. You owe us." I stepped closer. "What I owe you is the truth. And here it is. You are not entitled to what Daniel left behind. He earned that for us. For me and Maddie. He wrote you out of that story on purpose." My mother whispered. "We're still your parents." "Then act like it," I snapped. "Or stop pretending." I looked around the room. This conversation is over. We're not splitting anything. We're not negotiating with people who treat grief like a financial window. I turned to Maddie. "Ready to go?" She nodded. We walked to the door together. No one followed. As we stepped into the sunlight, she whispered, "Was I too mean?" I knelt to her eye level. "No, baby. You were honest. That's what Daddy would have wanted." We drove home in silence. Peaceful silence. Later that night, I placed her drawing in a file folder labeled Protected, because some truths deserve to be remembered forever. In the days after the confrontation, there was silence. No calls, no emails, no late-night messages trying to twist the story in their favor. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Aaron stayed another month. He made pancakes on Sundays, taught Maddie how to skip rocks at the lake, and helped me clean out Daniel's closet slowly, gently, story by story. Every shirt, every book, every baseball cap came with a memory. Some we cried over, some we laughed about until our stomachs hurt. When Aaron left to return to Seattle, Maddie sobbed into his jacket. "I'll be back before your birthday," he promised. "And I'm one call away, always." 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from my parents. "Dear Hannah and Maddie, we've had time to reflect. No excuses. What we did was wrong. We let entitlement and fear take the wheel. We forgot what loss really means. We forgot how to love. We don't expect forgiveness, but we hope, one day, we can earn back a place in your lives. Love, Mom and Dad." I stared at the letter for a long time. The handwriting was shaky. The words, less guarded. "No, if we hurt you or you misunderstood. Just we were wrong." I showed the letter to Aaron over video call. He studied it, then said, "Seems like they finally realized the bill came due." I didn't reply. I just nodded. A few days after that, Maddie brought it up. "Mom, do you think Grandma and Grandpa meant it?" I paused. "I think they're trying. And trying is the first step." She tilted her head. "Could we see them? Just once? Like at a park or something?" The idea made my stomach flip. But then I looked at her, at the same girl who had written that invoice without bitterness. Just clarity, and I realized something. She wasn't looking for reconciliation. She was looking for evidence. So I said, "Maybe." I texted my mother the next morning. You can meet us at the lake this Sunday. 1 hour. No talks about money. Just Maddie. Just connection. She responded within minutes. We'll be there. When Sunday came, we arrived early. Maddie brought a bag of bread crusts for the ducks and wore her favorite hoodie, Daniel's old one, sleeves still dragging. She was quiet on the drive. At exactly 11 a.m., my parents pulled up. They looked smaller, older. My mom didn't wear makeup. My dad wore jeans for the first time in maybe a decade. They approached slowly, cautiously. Maddie stood still as they got closer. Then, to my surprise, she stepped forward. Hi. My mom knelt. Hi, sweetheart. We missed you. Maddie didn't hug her, but she didn't pull away either. She reached into her backpack and handed them a folded piece of paper. I recognized it immediately. A second invoice. This one was blank except at the top. It read, "Let's try again." They read it together. My mother started to cry. We spent the next hour walking the path around the lake. My parents didn't ask questions about the will. They didn't bring up Jenna. They just listened. Asked Maddie about school, her new chess obsession, her favorite breakfast food now that Daddy wasn't there to make pancakes. Maddie answered with short, cautious replies. But she smiled once. That was enough. When it was time to leave, my father looked at me. "Thank you for this chance." I nodded. "This isn't a reset. It's probation. You're going to have to show up. Consistently." "We will," my mother said. "If you'll let us." I didn't answer. Not yet. But as I watched them walk back to their car, I realized something. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. You just have to knock. That night, Maddie and I sat on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching fireflies rise over the grass. "You know," she said, "Daddy always said love isn't automatic. You have to earn it." I looked at her, then up at the stars. He was right. I think they might be trying now. I nodded. Maybe we are too. She leaned against me. "I still miss him." "Me too." There was a pause. Then she added, "But I think he'd be proud of us." "I know he would," I whispered. And in that quiet, as fireflies blinked around us and the world kept turning, I knew something else. We hadn't just survived grief. We had grown from it. The kind of growth that draws clear lines, keeps the good in, and finally lets the bad go.